So Donald Trump went crazy during one of his rallies over a speech that Joe Biden gave in Philadelphia regarding the efforts of his MAGA crowd to undermine democracy. Let's talk about it in today's video. Hi, I'm Mike Greiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. I'm also a lawyer and an academic, and I'm here to help you stand up to the BS of the MAGA crowd. So Donald Trump gave a speech in Pennsylvania in response to President Biden's speech in Philadelphia. We all know about the speech in Philadelphia. That's the one where President Biden called out the MAGA crowd and Donald Trump for their efforts to undermine U.S. democracy. But you know Donald Trump, he can never let a challenge go unresponded to. Let's check out his speech here.
Well, thank you very much, and hello, Pennsylvania. Hello. I'm thrilled to be back in this incredible Commonwealth with the thousands of proud, hardworking American patriots that I have.
Well, let's start with the fact that this isn't by accident that both President Biden and former President Trump decided to choose Pennsylvania as the venue for their speeches. After all, Pennsylvania is an important swing state, one of the key states that helped determine both Trump's election in 2016 and Biden's election in 2020. And in this upcoming midterm is going to be a key swing state in determining control of the U.S. Senate. After all, right now there's a Republican U.S. Senator, Pat Toomey, who's retiring, and the leading candidate to replace him right now is Democratic Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman. What's more is this is also a state with an important gubernatorial race. After all, the governor in Pennsylvania actually appoints the Secretary of State, the person who's in charge of administering the elections there. Well, the Republican candidate, Doug Mastriano, who's supported by Donald Trump, actually was involved in the January 6th insurrection and has explicitly said that if he were elected governor, he would not certify an election won by a Democrat. So the Pennsylvania election coming up right now is a big deal. Let's check out more.
Gotten to know so well. 2 months from now, the people of Pennsylvania are going to fire the radical left Democrats, and you are going to elect Doug Mastriano as your next governor. And
it's worth pointing out, by the way, that both Mastriano and the Republican candidate for U.S. Senate, who we're about to hear about, are both behind the Democrats in the polls. Now, we all know we can't count on the polls, but at least it's a good sign for the Democrats going into the election at this point. Let's keep watching.
You are going to send my friend Oz.
Ah, yes, his good friend Dr. Oz, his fellow traveler in the world of reality television. Interestingly enough, though, Dr. Oz might not necessarily be on Donald Trump's favorites list right now. After all, Oz revealed the fact that, and this is a pretty radical position in today's Republican Party, he thinks Joe Biden actually won the election. As always, by the way, if you doubt what I'm saying, you can check out the links to the articles supporting what I'm saying down below. But let's continue with this video.
He is a great guy. To the U.S. Senate, you're going to elect an amazing slate of true America First Republicans to Congress, and we are going to end the Nancy Pelosi political career, the Biden political career.
I find it interesting that he talks about electing people to the U.S. Senate and then talks about Nancy Pelosi, who is not in the Senate? Okay. Let's keep watching.
We're going to end it. Our country's going to hell. Our country is going to hell.
Now, I find it interesting him saying about how our country is going to hell when, by virtually every measure, it's improving since he was in office. But let's keep watching.
This election is a referendum on skyrocketing inflation, rampant crime, soaring murders, crushing gas prices, millions.
Just to be clear, gas prices have been going down, and crime has also been going down since he was in office. Let's keep watching.
Millions and millions of illegal aliens pouring across our border.
Again, the statistics that the Republicans use to attack President Biden for this supposed crisis on the border are statistics that show that we've been arresting more people at the border, which doesn't make sense. If we're arresting them, how is it that President Biden is not enforcing the law? Let's keep watching.
And gender indoctrination, perverting our schools, and above all, this election is a referendum on the corruption and extremism of Joe Biden and the radical Democrat Party.
Well, let's start with this. Corruption. I mean, after all, this is the guy whose son-in-law got a $2 billion, with a B, dollar investment from the murderer of an American journalist, the head of the Saudi Arabian state, after they left office. And he's also the guy who stole all kinds of sensitive documents that belonged to the U.S. government and took them to his home in Mar-a-Lago, resulting in this huge investigation we're hearing about. But yet, who's corrupt? And in terms of extremism, I mean, Democrats believe in something really crazy. We believe in actually the person who gets the most votes should win. Imagine that. That is crazy talk there, isn't it? Let's keep watching.
If you want to stop this destruction of America, you must vote Republican. You got to get out and vote. As you know, this week, Joe Biden came to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to give the most vicious, hateful, and divisive speech ever delivered by an American president.
Now, I can't sit here and watch this. I mean, this is the guy who, at one point, was described as attacking everyone except for white supremacists and Vladimir Putin, which is pretty much what he does. He's the guy who, when he sees a story on Fox News he doesn't like, attacks Fox News. And he's saying that Joe Biden is divisive and negative? It just doesn't make any sense. Let's keep watching.
75 million citizens, plus another probably 75 to 150, if we want to be accurate about it, as threats to democracy.
Now, let's also be honest about this and remember the fact that, yes, 75 million people voted for him in the last election, but guess what? 81 million voted for Joe Biden. Let's keep watching.
And as enemies of the state, you're all enemies of the state. He's an enemy of the state. You want to know the truth? The enemy of the state is him and the group that control him, which is...
Now, let's pause that there. Now, explicitly, Joe Biden was quite clear about the fact that he was talking about the MAGA Republicans who are trying to overturn our elections. Secondly, it's not a stretch to describe someone who engaged in a riot trying to take over the U.S. Capitol while it's trying to conduct its business as someone who's an enemy of the state. And in fact, we just had a ruling that a county commissioner from New Mexico who engaged in the January 6th insurrection is an insurrectionist and as a result is ineligible to hold public office under the 14th Amendment to the United States. So actually, people like that being enemies of the state, that's actually a pretty accurate description. Let's keep watching.
Circling around him, do this, do that, Joe. You're going to do this, Joe, right? I think Philadelphia...
You know, the other thing, too, is I love how these people talk about how Joe Biden doesn't have agency and they keep telling him to do these things. I gotta tell you, if he were being told to do things, there's some things he'd do that he hasn't done yet. He'd be a lot more aggressive on a couple of fronts that I think a lot of people would like to see him take. But Joe Biden's instincts don't run that way. He's kind of a like everybody kind of guy. He likes everybody. He wants to get along with everybody. So just imagine how much it took to get him to the point to realize that a certain segment of the American population really just don't want to engage in U.S. democracy anymore. That's really saying something. Let's keep watching.
Was a great choice to make this speech of hatred and anger. His speech was hatred and anger. By the way, the next morning he forgot what he said. You saw that.
That is not true, actually. Again, this just shows how the Republicans have this narrative. On the one hand, they talk about how Joe Biden is so evil and he's doing all these horrible things. On the other hand, they're saying that he's like losing his mind and he's incompetent and he is incapable of keeping a thought in his mind. I just can't understand how they can have these two Joe Bidens exist in the same world. But it's worth noting that in terms of the next day, Joe Biden was making it clear that he was only talking about the radical insurrectionist MAGA Republicans, the kind of people who engaged in the insurrection on January 6th. He's not saying that all Republicans are bad. He's not saying that all people who voted for President Trump are bad. No, he's just saying that these people who want to overturn democracy and won't accept any election result unless it's the one that they want are people who are undermining democracy. And then they claim that this is something different from what he said the night before, even though that's explicitly what he said the night before. Well, you can't make these people happy. Let's keep watching.
They asked him about, oh, I didn't think I said that, did I? Oh, no. How'd you like the red lighting behind him like the devil?
Yeah, I hate to agree with Trump on just about anything, but here I have to agree with him. I did not think the staging of the speech was particularly effective. It would have been much more effective if it had been a little less harsh, but you can't have everything. Let's keep watching.
But Philadelphia was a great choice because the city is being devastated under Democrat rule. Devastated. Hate to tell you, we love Pennsylvania. I went to school in Philadelphia. What's happening to Philadelphia? 14 people were shot last weekend in Philadelphia, 14. And the fake news will go out and check. Oh, that's a lot of fake news. Whoa.
I just am so tired of hearing about the fake news from him. The irony, of course, is that the term fake news was coined to describe the news that was being generated by Russian bots on Facebook in support of Donald Trump. But this is just a great example of how he's able to turn everything around. Let's keep watching.
It's a lot of fake news. Wow.
It's worth noting, by the way, that Philadelphia, the city that he attacked, is actually doing relatively well compared to many of its peers. As always, again, I'll post links to the articles down below that support what I'm saying, but last year, Philadelphia actually ended with a massive budget surplus, so it's doing very well with its budget. And actually, a research study found that there are more murders and higher murder rates in states that are red states as opposed to the blue states and the big cities that Trump is always demonizing as being controlled by Democrats. But that's really what he's attacking, which is Democrats. And I love how he says how hateful Joe Biden was, and then in the next word, he basically turns around and calls Joe Biden a name, saying he's the enemy of the state. But this is the guy who's able to say one thing at a debate, walk off the stage, be asked about that, and deny that he said that exact same thing when he was giving the speech on the stage. There is absolutely no consistency with him. The only consistency with Donald Trump is that he attacks and attacks and attacks. And the reality is, that's what the MAGA crowd wants. That's why they love him. They want to make everyone as miserable as they are, and Donald Trump is their tool to do that. That's why, as one commentator pointed out to his amazement, even though most Republicans now acknowledge the fact that Donald Trump probably committed crimes, they don't care. Donald Trump was right when he said that he could stand on Fifth Avenue and shoot someone and nobody would convict him. His supporters love him for the fact that he just attacks and attacks and attacks and basically spreads feces everywhere he goes, because that's what they want. So I think the contrast between the speech that President Biden gave and the speech that we just reviewed is really telling. Well, if you want to check out another video where I talk about just how irresponsible Republicans have become, check out this video over here. I'll see you then. In the meantime, let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.